Uh, uh, Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Priscilla Elder, and I volunteer at Rosie The Riveter Park at Richmond, California. The address is 1414 South. It is a beautiful, beautiful day, and there's a lot of noise and people all over, and I'm enjoying it very much for being a 95-year-old woman.
Congratulations, that's good, great.
Thank you. And I got some pictures here.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, I'll zoom that a little bit there. Wow, you're beautiful, beautiful, beautiful woman. Still beautiful, of course.
Thank you.
And so tell us, how did you leave home? How'd you get here? What'd you think? What'd you do? Everything.
Well, when 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 the war came along, when when the war came along, naturally they started looking for women workers because a lot of the men were going to war, and our President Roosevelt begged on over the airwaves and for us women come to work because most of the boys were being drafted, and my husband happened to have been drafted, and he was under George Patton's tank destroyer army, and they were in the Battle of Bulge when they were in Belgium, but the boys made it home. And then while I was working, I did come with a 20-month-old baby, and I had him in child care here in Richmond, California, and I did live here at 1401 Virginia Street. Then before the war ended, I moved to San Francisco. Yeah, that music's awful loud. And so anyway, I did get a job and worked at the Simmons Mattress Factory. And I built the box springs and the mattresses. And then while I lived there, I took my son to San Francisco Park, Golden Gate Park, which is quite close by, about 3 or 4 blocks away. And then I had to go back home because my husband was getting out of work. And then after we lived there a while, we moved away, and I always wanted to come back to Richmond. And after 10 years or so, I convinced him, and my home is in California.
Oh, that's great.
And he loves it too, but he has now passed away. And I am widowed, and I volunteer here at the Rosie The Riveter Park.
Well, that's great. So, what was like one of your working days at the Kaiser shipyards? Can you describe it?
In the shipyards?
Yeah.
Well, at that time I was young, and it seemed like my work was easy because I did the panel boxes that they mounted on the ships. And I just we all wore mostly pants at the time, slacks, and then we hardly ever wore dresses unless we went to a dance or something.
Were you day shift or night shift?
I did work day shift.
Day shift, and were they like 8-hour days or?
They were 8 hours, and they had a swing shift 8 hours, and they had a graveyard shift 12 hours.
So it went 24/7.
They were open 24/7, and it was a very crowded little city because it was a small city, very pretty, but a lot of open land. So when they started with all the work and the people coming in from all over, they built housing for people, and I did live in one of the housing that they built.
How was that? Was it pretty good?
Oh, very nice. And everybody wonders how we were treated being women
By the men, right?
by the men. And I cannot say one bad word about the men around us. They come, Marion, she worked with me too. This is with this fella here.
Dawn.
You want to talk about your experience in Tower?
I can hardly hear you.
I said you want
Have you
to
said hi to her yet?
you want to talk about your experience here and more.
Want to put up with it one more time for the camera?
Okay.
Okay.
Why did you talk to her already?
I don't think so.
No, we haven't done not today anyway.
Oh, not yesterday. You know who he was?
Oh my gosh, you look like a kid in that picture.
I was 17. That was my high school graduation